countries and companies that have been ripping us aren't particularly happy with what I'm doing.
Another delay in Trump's tariffs. The U.S. president pauses his plans again.
Tonight, trade war whiplash, the chaos and confusion is caused. Good evening. We begin tonight with yet another reversal from the U.S. president.
Donald Trump announcing today the 25% tariff on Canadian goods that fall under the North American Trade Pact will be put on hold until the beginning of April.
I'll tell you what's a high tariff nation is Canada. Canada charges us 250% for our milk product and other product, and a tremendous tariff on lumber.
This is the latest twist in fast-shifting trade policy that has whipsawed financial markets and business leaders. The exemption, which also applies to Mexico, will expire on April 2nd. It is a temporary reprieve, but not good enough for Premier Doug Ford today, standing firm that Ontario's retaliatory response will go ahead. CTV's Mike Walker is live at Queen's Park with the details. Mike, today the Premier even went one step further.
That's right, Michelle. Premier Doug Ford saying starting on Monday, Ontario will be charging 25% more for electricity that is shipped to 3 U.S. states. At the same time, we heard from the mayor of Toronto, who announced plans to bar U.S. companies from future city contracts.
The only deal is drop the tariffs unconditionally.
Tough talk from Ontario Premier Doug Ford, with the province now set to implement a 25% surcharge on electricity shipped to 3 U.S. states starting Monday.
There's one person to be blamed for that, and that's President Trump. He's created an absolute mess. He's created chaos right now around North America and actually around the world.
It will affect Minnesota, New York, and Michigan, where Ontario ships electricity to 1.5 million Americans. Even with the Trump administration now delaying tariffs on Canadian goods under the current trade agreement until April, Ford says the electricity surcharge will go ahead.
He did this before. Remember, he said he'd do it 1 month, 3 days later, a week later, he puts the tariffs on. So as I always say, you know, you touch a stove once and you get burnt. You don't touch that stove again.
It's a message Ford has been sending to Americans, speaking on multiple U.S. networks today.
Let's sit down and renegotiate the USMCA deal that he created.
In between meetings with cabinet and representatives from affected industries, including the auto sector, which the president has given a 1-month exemption.
There's a Team Canada approach. We don't need any special treatment. We know that if you put the 25% tariffs, he's going to shut down the industry within a week.
The Premier has called on municipalities to follow the province on barring U.S. companies from government procurement. Toronto's mayor announcing city contracts for $353,000 or less will be exclusive for Canadian companies.
There are many, many great options to choose from, and the City of Toronto is doing our part to award contracts to local firms.
Trade agreements require all companies outside Canada to bid on projects above that dollar value. Contracts with American companies account for 10% of the city's $60 billion capital budget. But Olivia Chow is also looking to ban U.S. companies from future contracts and will seek support from City Council.
We are strong in AI and tech. We are creative, we have the experience, we're highly educated, so we can deal with our own contracts. We don't have to go to American companies.
The mayor acknowledges it may cost the city more.
We haven't had the financial analysis at this point yet, but I think it's important that we stay strong in our principle and not shop American.
Now, the Ford government is expected to provide more details on the electricity surcharge on Monday. In the meantime, the Premier's office confirms that American booze will not be returning to LCBO shelves despite this delay until they say all tariffs are dropped. Reporting live at Queen's Park, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. In response to the U.S. tariff delay, Canada has now announced it will pause some of its retaliatory tariffs. Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc posted this on X, saying the United States has agreed to suspend tariffs on CUSMA-compliant exports from Canada until April 2nd. As a result, Canada will not proceed with the second wave of tariffs on $125 billion of U.S. products until April 2nd, while we continue to work for the removal of all tariffs. Canada's industry minister also reacted to the American pause, saying on CTV's Power Play, regardless of what happens, certainty must be restored.
The economy cannot work in cycles where things change by the day. What we need to restore is stability and predictability, and that's our message also to our U.S. counterpart. What we want is not just a pause, is a removal of the tariffs, because I would say the market have spoken, U.S. workers have spoken, union leaders in the United States have spoken, and captain of industries have spoken.
The initial Canadian tariffs, already in effect on about $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, will remain in place.
Trump's tariffs also appear to be causing turbulence in people's travel plans.
The ever-looming threat has people rethinking plans to the United States. This as the busy March break getaway begins. CTV's John Musselman is live at Pearson Airport with that story. John.
Well, Nathan, people love getting away on March break, and a lot of those destinations include places like Florida, but we did get a sense from people they're feeling a little bit uneasy this year.
The March break getaway has a slightly different feel this year, especially for Canadians heading to U.S. sun destinations like Florida. Travelers expressing unease about visiting and spending money there.
Yeah, we feel pretty guilty actually about traveling to the U.S. And we're flying Air Canada. We tried to fly Porter. We probably won't be eating out or shopping very much, watching where we spend our money for sure.
I'm certainly nervous about it. Right now, not worrying about it because we're going to go, have a good time on vacation.
Travel experts say the tariff fight and our weak loonie have created a perfect storm. The booking numbers to the United States are trending downward.
We've certainly seen a softening in flights to the U.S. If I look at specifically February 2025 and compare that to our booking data in 24, we have had a 40% decrease in flights from Canada to the U.S.
I think the lower loonie, quite frankly, if our money was at par, even if you were angry at President Trump and his tariffs, I think you would still probably be happy to come down to a Florida or a Palm Springs destination or any one of the other sun destinations.
And thousands are still heading south. Canceling pre-booked trips to the States is just too costly.
It's going to take a little bit of time to come through and affect us, so I'm waiting to see what it's actually going to be and how it's actually going to impact us. And it may impact future trips.
We have noticed a trend that since November, we have been tracking that there was a 20% increase in cancellations of Canada to U.S. trips.
Meanwhile, officials at Pearson are gearing up for one of the busiest stretches of the year.
Expecting about 140,000 passengers per day on the busiest days. From March 7th to March 16th, about 9,500 flights. So the airport's going to be very busy.
Anything you can pour, anything you can spread, and anything you can spray. So all that needs to be in 100 milliliters or less containers.
And when you return from those vacations, Border Services says travelers should have their documents and their declarations in order.
First of all, having travel documents ready to present when they arrive in Canada. By travel documents, we mean passports, permanent resident cards, and permits. Be ready to declare all the goods that you're going to be importing into Canada.
The March break getaway will be even busier tomorrow.
And a couple of travelers heading to the States said, look, they're just not going to talk about politics, tariffs, any of that. It's all off the table. They just want to enjoy their vacation. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thanks, John. Also tonight, nonprofit organizations raise concerns about the Canada-U.S. trade war. The impact on local charities coming up.
But first, we turn our attention to the evening conditions on what has been a dangerous day of driving in much of southern Ontario as wet roads turned to ice rinks. This live shot showing problem-free conditions. Fortunately, looks like they're moving along at a good clip there. Jessica Smith is here with the specifics. And Jess, Toronto is no longer under any weather warnings.
We're in the clear for now, but if you're heading out of the GTA, I know a lot of folks may be taking off early for March break. It is still a little dicey if you're going north of the city, east of the city, or west of the city. But for at least the downtown core, the greater Toronto area, we are in the clear. Still the chance of maybe a pop-up flurry overnight. We've seen light flurries off and on, not much accumulating for us here in the GTA and the downtown core. A different story for our friends along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. They're still seeing a blowing snow advisory. It's very windy out there, so we're still holding on to the wind and cooler temps as we head into the evening. And if you're going east of the city, still some flash freezing warnings, but for now, the GTA, we are in the clear. -2 right now. It feels like -10, a little cooler through eastern Ontario, but overall, it's not the worst. But it does get better as we head in towards the weekend. All those details coming up right now. I will send things back over to Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. Police are investigating more gun violence linked to the tow truck industry.
Just one day after 2 shootings rocked 2 areas of the city, gunshots were fired at a tow yard last night. CTV's Allison Hurst continues her coverage, joining us live now with more on this latest incident. Allison.
All 3 of those incidents are in different parts of the city entirely, and Toronto police have yet to tell us whether any of them are connected. For the 3rd time in just 24 hours, shots fired involving the towing industry shortly before 10 p.m., this time at a yard in Etobicoke.
You just keep hearing constant stories about continuous violence and fire and, any type of gun violence. Now it's almost fearful to ask for help or reach out for help.
No injuries were reported, but police did find evidence of gunfire and say the suspect or suspects fled in a vehicle. Tuesday night at roughly the same time, bullets flew outside this tow yard near Weston Road in St. Clair. A man in his 50s was sent to hospital in life-threatening condition, and one in his 20s is expected to survive. Then, an hour later in Scarborough, a tow truck driver in his 20s was shot at a gas station and sent to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
It's really shocking. I mean, the statistics alone are shocking. The history is shocking. The fact that it's still continuing is shocking.
Max Worth with Abrams says they mostly handle government and corporate contracts.
The challenges that the industry faces with respect to its image, it's disappointing, but it comes from a very small percentage of the industry.
According to Toronto police data, in 2024, 13% of all shooting incidents were tied to tow truck-related disputes. This year, that number has risen to 29%, but overall shootings and firearm discharges are down citywide by 38%.
So you just worry a little bit, and this kind of a thing is a bit of an escalation. You feel already vulnerable, don't know who's going to show up, and now to know that you might even be in danger or something, that's a little nerve-wracking.
I don't know what is going on between them. But no, I personally would be okay.
There's so many gypsy tow trucks, and there's too much licensing been given out. So that's the problem. There's just too many people. It's just like the Ubers and the taxis fighting amongst each other.
A spokesperson for the Ministry of Transportation says it is closely monitoring tow vehicle storage operations and drivers and working with enforcement partners. We spoke with a tow truck driver affiliated with the company where those gunfire was last night, and he told us that he is afraid every single day he goes to work and that he parks his tow truck with a number of others at the backs of plazas or behind buildings to try and stay out of sight. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. Meanwhile, a man's fighting for his life after a shooting in Stony Creek this morning. Hamilton police say it happened around 4:20 a.m. near Highway 8 and Fruitland Road. They also say several vehicles were involved with multiple shots fired. The victim suffered critical injuries. There's been no word on potential suspects, but investigators remained on scene throughout the day before reopening the area over the last hour.
The FBI is offering a multi-million-dollar reward in exchange for help arresting a former Canadian Olympian and suspected drug kingpin. Ryan Wedding competed in snowboarding for Canada at the 2002 Winter Games. More recently, he's wanted for allegedly operating a drug network that shipped cocaine from Colombia across North America. He's also accused of orchestrating murders and an attempted murder, allegations that have not been proven in court. The 43-year-old is believed to potentially be in Mexico. The FBI today added Wedding to its list of the top 10 most wanted fugitives and offered a $10 million reward for information leading to his capture.
A fire that ripped through several townhomes in Yorkville is being treated as suspicious.
It caused extensive damage. As CTV's Janice Goulding reports, according to city documents, some of the homes under construction had building code violations.
This was a scene in Yorkville early Wednesday morning. A strip of Century homes completely engulfed in flames.
It was very scary, to be honest. When I came, I saw so many cars, the fires and everything.
The fire, which is believed to have started in a home under construction, quickly consumed 6 townhomes before spreading across the street, destroying 4 cars and yet another house.
So right now we're conducting fire watch at 4 buildings, so exposures. There's 2 buildings on the south side of the street, and also the 2 immediate to the west of the where the heaviest fire was.
Toronto Hydro, meanwhile, began work to remove and replace damaged lines. Many of the impacted homes had been converted into businesses, with fire officials saying the property damage could be in the tens of millions. This, as police say, they've deemed the fire suspicious.
You never know, because the time that happened, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody around.
I live in the neighborhood. It's very quiet here. Can't imagine what would have occurred. And it was construction, so there's nothing turned on. There's no ovens or anything like that. So I don't know. Just seems a little weird.
Many who live and work in the area say the construction had been going on for some time.
It's like I'm here for 2 years. For the past 2 years, they were working on it actually. So.
And yet it seemed to have stopped.
Months that they, workers hadn't been working. I literally walked the street, especially with my dog all the time, and going to the gym. And it was kind of like, when are they going to finish it?
According to building permit records obtained by CTV News Toronto, last May, several addresses believed to be involved in the fire had building code violations, including major interior alterations and exterior construction, including but not limited to facade changes without benefit of building permits. And an order to comply was issued stating, "You are advised to cease all further construction until the necessary permit has been issued." According to the City of Toronto's website, the status of those orders remains unresolved. Toronto Fire, the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office, and Toronto Police are all investigating. Janice Golding, CTV News.
An investigation is underway after a large fire in downtown Bowmanville overnight. At around 12 a.m., emergency crews responded to a building on King Street near Scugog that contains both apartments and rental units. The building was evacuated as fire crews put out the flames. Durham Regional Police say there are reports one person may be unaccounted for. The Ontario Fire Marshal is now working to figure out what sparked this blaze.
And York Regional Police are searching for multiple suspects in an arson incident in Markham. This video from early Monday morning shows a vehicle storage lot near Heritage Road in McCowan. Two individuals can be seen exiting a car driven by a third person. They pour liquid on a number of vehicles parked there before setting them on fire. Police say 13 vehicles suffered heavy damage before the fire went out on its own. They're asking anyone with information to get in touch.
And in Etobicoke, one person was injured when a car veered off the road and crashed into a business. It happened along the Queensway near Loma Road around 10 this morning. According to paramedics, one person was taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The sidewalk was closed while crews worked on a broken gas meter. There was also damage to the window of the business. No word yet on what caused the crash.
As Toronto braces for a potential city workers' strike, tonight union members are applying pressure in the labor dispute.
They're holding an informational picket as a deal deadline looms. CTV's Natalie Johnson joins us live with the details. Natalie.
Yeah, Nathan, this is QP Local 79, the city's largest workers union, representing nearly 30,000 inside workers. And they are warning that without a deal from the city, they will walk off the job at 12:01 a.m. on Monday. Now, the legal strike and lockout position actually comes into effect at 12:01 a.m. Saturday, though the union has said it will not strike until 2 days later. That times with the start of March break camps and the childcare that many parents will depend on. The city, meanwhile, says it has tabled its final offer to Local 79, a 14.65% increase over 4 years, along with additional increases for certain jobs like nurses and dispatchers. That dollar figure is what was offered to and accepted by the city's outdoor workers, but 79 insists they want their own deal. Here's what a couple of workers had to say here tonight.
I'm sick of the under-resourcing of city staff and city programs. The people of Toronto deserve to have the services at the highest level that we can expect and we should expect.
My concern is, why isn't part-time recreation workers getting any benefits, sick days, or vacations? You know, we're workers just like everyone else. We're working 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, and we still don't qualify for it, right? So it is very concerning and upsetting that the city isn't respecting part-time recreation workers by offering them the stuff that we actually need to be able to provide better services for Torontonians.
Now, in the latest and so-called final offer, the city has also agreed to eliminate minimum wage jobs for this union. So far, that has not been good enough for QP Local 79. Reporting live, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Returning to our coverage of Trump's tariffs, today a temporary one-month reprieve was announced.
But the threat still looms large, and tonight we look at how charities are bracing for impact. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
So you're in the Toronto Zoo greenhouse, which is this amazing place where we're growing food.
Excitement is building at the Toronto Zoo to welcome visitors over March break into the newly updated greenhouse for Orchid Oasis, while the on-off switch of U.S. tariffs is raising concerns.
We're clearly entering a phase of some unpredictability when it comes to pricing. And for us, things we're thinking about animal food. It comes from all across North America and beyond in some cases. Construction materials, much of that, things like steel that could originate in the United States. We're worried that could have an impact.
The zoo CEO says there's questions around permits in cases where endangered species move between the two countries and expects the pace to slow. One show of solidarity, all the different flags outside the entrance have been swapped for Canadian flags. He says the zoo is working to adapt.
We've talked about production of a lot of vegetables and a lot of animal food on site. We'll be looking more deeply into that.
The Salvation Army, which helps support 1.8 million people in Ontario and relies on donations, is also adapting. A month ago, it launched a 25% discount campaign to raise awareness that even giving less still makes a big impact. With an economic downturn, more inflation, it says the need for services will increase.
Calling and making appointments for food banks, shelter, making sure that they can keep the lights on, making sure that they can get to the end of the month, maybe even around unemployment, having to look to update their resume and apply for a new job.
At Second Harvest, which recovers fresh food, the economic uncertainty is already causing problems. It's concerned about the food supply chain and says businesses are not donating because of their uncertainty.
And we are going to get hurt. Many charities and nonprofits will close as a result of this, while more and more people need access to food supports and other supports.
It says now is the time for organizations to shore up and prepare for the worst. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
Since we can't rely on the U.S. right now, there's a renewed effort in Canada to improve interprovincial trade. The Prime Minister and the Premiers met yesterday, vowing to reduce barriers to internal commerce and labor mobility across the country. They released a statement last night that reads in part, First Ministers agreed that certified professionals with credentials in one jurisdiction should be able to work anywhere in Canada. Whether relocating for family reasons or pursuing job opportunities elsewhere, workers should be free to do what they are trained to do and contribute to the Canadian economy. Internal trade ministers and labor market ministers in each province have been directed to come up with a plan for countrywide credential recognition by June 1st.
Ontario is among 11 provinces and territories that have agreed to an extension of the national $10 a day childcare program.
And not only are we extending current agreements, we're also increasing the funding that these agreements provide by 3% per year to help provinces and territories deal with costs that we know will rise over the coming years.
Justin Trudeau says he wants to try and ensure no future governments can cancel the program. The extensions will be in place until March of 2031 at a cost of nearly $37 billion. Ontario will get more than $16.7 billion. 8 provinces and territories have already lowered fees that parents pay to an average of $10 a day or less. The remaining ones have reduced fees by at least 50% and are working towards $10 a day.
The federal government is providing an additional $10 million to help counter extremism and anti-Semitism.
The statistics are alarming. Indeed, an increase over the last 10 years of anti-Semitic hate against Jewish Canadians by 322%.
A national forum on combating anti-Semitism was held in Ottawa today. The federal money will go to a community resilience fund. Officials say it will assist security services at grassroots organizations and help staff better understand the early warning signs of extremism.
Canada's military footprint in the Arctic is being beefed up. The defense minister announcing plans today to build the first 3 operational support hubs in the region.
We will be beginning our work at 3 locations across the north, in Inuvik, in Yellowknife, and most relevantly for this morning, right here in Iqaluit. Each of these locations has been identified as an ideal site for the network based on their geography and the strong military ties that already exist here in this community.
Bill Blair says there will be other hubs built in Canada's far north to help secure our sovereignty there, but they are not military bases. Their function is to support military operations with communications, transport infrastructure, and supply storage. The hubs will also provide assistance with search and rescue efforts.
Amid uncertainty over America's support, European Union countries gather to show they are fully behind Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the EU leaders for their unwavering support and asked them to support the idea of a truce. The Ukrainian leader said it would be a chance to test Moscow's will to end its invasion. Zelensky will travel to Saudi Arabia on Monday for a meeting with the Crown Prince and will meet with American officials there later. Now, he says his country is most interested in peace. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said NATO countries are still not paying enough for their own defense, and if they don't change that, the U.S. will not defend them.
In Rome today, the Pope thanked people for their prayers as he receives treatment for double pneumonia. The pontiff released an audio message that was broadcast to the faithful in St. Peter's Square. Doctors said today the Pope is stable with no new respiratory crises or fever. He continued his respiratory and other physical therapy, as well as working, resting, and praying in the hospital's papal suite.
A privately owned lunar lander has touched down near the moon's south pole. The Athena lander dropped out of lunar orbit as planned today. It's carrying a drill, a drone, and 2 rovers for NASA and others. The space agency's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter will fly over the landing site in the coming days to confirm Athena's position and orientation. The last time intuitive machines landed on spacecraft on the moon a year ago, it ended up sideways. Officials say the newest lander may have fallen as well.
Coming up, shell shock. The rising price of eggs in the U.S. is not going over easy. The option to import eggs from Canada suddenly scrambled by the trade war.
I'm Pat Four, and coming up on Consumer Alert, we recently had a story about Apple AirPods that can be used as hearing aids. They're allowed in more than 100 countries around the world, but not in Canada. Hearing aids here must be prescribed by a professional. But some say that's not fair. I'll have that story. That's just ahead.
And after an active weather start to the day, we get a reprieve as we head into the evening. So if you're driving tonight, temperature-wise, it's a little cool, but we're not dealing with anything in the way of active weather. It's just those gusty northwesterly winds. So just keep that in mind. It'll have it feeling a little fresher as you head out this evening. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. And stay with us. We have another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
According to Statistics Canada, about 60% of adult Canadians have some form of hearing loss, and many could benefit from the use of a hearing aid.
They can be expensive, which is why there's a lot of interest in Apple AirPods with hearing aid technology. But there's a lot more to the story. Pat Foran explains on Consumer Alert.
Health Canada approved Apple's AirPods Pro 2 as hearing aids in December, but hearing aids fall under provincial jurisdiction. So while some people bought the AirPods and want to use them as hearing aids, so far, they're not allowed to. Many people use Apple AirPods to listen to music and podcasts, but the latest models can also be configured to work like a traditional hearing aid. Apple's AirPods Pro 2 now offer hearing assistance for people with mild to moderate hearing loss.
Once I read that Health Canada had given the approval, I thought, well, it's home free, and I promptly went out and bought myself a pair.
Barry Buckler of Markham says after he purchased the AirPods, he was disappointed to find out the technology is still not allowed to be downloaded in Canada.
These AirPods seemed like absolutely the thing that I would need, and I'm sure many other seniors would benefit from as well.
I kind of felt like I got ripped off.
Art Jakes of Oakville also bought the AirPods to use as hearing aids and is frustrated the feature can't be used here.
I think it's sinful to hold it back. Like I said, this is an accessibility issue. Everybody needs all the advantages they can get.
Ontario's Ministry of Health told CTV News prescribing a hearing aid in Ontario is authorized to only audiologists and physicians.
If the product is not used right or is not set properly, it can cause more hearing loss and other problems.
The Ontario Association of Professional Audiology Clinics says it supports lower cost options for consumers, but says patients with hearing loss should speak with a professional. The hearing issue could be something as simple as wax buildup or as serious as a tumor, which is something AirPods won't tell you.
If we don't know what is causing the hearing loss or where it's come from, then that's something that can go untreated for a while because you haven't had the opportunity to sit down in front of an audiologist and go through that.
The AirPods Pro 2 can be used as hearing aid devices in over 100 countries. Buckler says Canadians should have the same option.
Here we are in our advanced country and we can't. So that's very disappointing.
Ontario's Ministry of Health says for AirPods to be used as hearing aids, it would have to be done in accordance with the Regulated Health Professions Act. So for now, using AirPods as hearing aids is on hold for the foreseeable future. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, we didn't get any rain, a little bit of flurries, but I guess a reminder with the temperatures, it's still winter.
Definitely. I think at least, though, for Toronto, kind of getting off easy today while you hear about all the situations outside of the city.
It really has been one of those days where the wind has been the bigger issue. We had those advisories in place earlier. They have now dropped, which is great news. But Toronto and the GTA, as Michelle mentioned, escaped a good portion of the really, really messy weather. And for everybody, there is some light on the horizon, quite literally in the way of sunshine as we head into the day tomorrow. But it was a different story early on today. This is from Whitby. It was a winter wonderland in parts of the GTA and definitely cool, but the wind was the issue. It was creating that lake effect snow and really firing up that lake effect snow machine. So although we are into the meteorological spring season, winter said we're not done with you yet, but the good news is there is sunshine on the way into the day tomorrow. Right now sitting at -2, it feels like -10. We're not far off the seasonal mark as we head through the overnight, but the wind chill still very much a factor. Anywhere north of North Bay, it is absolutely freezing. As we head in towards this evening, we'll sit at -3, which is just above that seasonal point. You factor in the wind, a gusty west-northwesterly or northwesterly wind just means lake effect snow and cold air. So we're looking at a burst of flurries overnight for different portions of southern Ontario, but overall, not a terrible evening. Into the day tomorrow, back to seasonal, a little sunshine out there, the chance of maybe a light passing flurry early on, but really nothing to impact our day. Those travel advisories that are still sitting in parts of southern Ontario are going to eventually fade as we head throughout the day tomorrow, but we're still seeing blowing snow advisories along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, and winter weather travel advisories north of the city. So if you're taking off early for March break, give yourself that extra time. Still looking at pretty dicey driving conditions in those parts of southern Ontario. So watching for the wind to push some of those flurries across southern portions of the province. But as we head into the day tomorrow, a little bit of a break. And then as we head into the weekend, things get really nice. Right now, though, we're just holding on to a fairly clear sky. The chance of maybe a light flurry early in the morning, likely before the commute for a lot of people. And then it's not a bad drive as we head throughout the day. And if we're maybe heading off early for March break for some people, really isn't going to be an issue as far as travel goes on the roads, at least for the GTA and over towards Pearson. As we head into the evening, though, some light flurries kind of London to Windsor area, but for the most part, the GTA staying relatively clear. We get into the start of our Saturday, lots of sunshine out there, temperatures on the positive side, although a little cool. And then as we head in towards our Sunday, it gets even nicer and the clocks spring forward. Yes, we lose a little bit of sleep, but that sunset time, ooh, it's after 6 p.m. It's closer to 7. It's really nice. It's a bit of a trade-off. Again, very seasonal as we head into the day tomorrow. 3 for the high, -8 for the low. We get in towards your Saturday, your Sunday. Temperatures on the positive side. It is a little below seasonal into your Saturday, but listen, I don't mind as long as there is sunshine. As we head in towards your Sunday, it gets really nice, and then double digits. Monday, Tuesday, what a start to March break. So if you have activities with the kiddos planned outside, it is going to be fantastic. As we said, in towards Wednesday, still holding on above seasonal. A little shower activity likely on Thursday, but hey, we are in spring, and it 'tis the season for these types of things. But overall, we're holding on to temperatures at or above seasonal as we step in towards the weekend and the beginning of next week. Nathan, I'll send things over to you.
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Also tonight, a breakthrough in a type of gene therapy that can treat and possibly prevent ALS in some patients. The astounding results of a new clinical trial coming up. A new drug just approved by Health Canada is showing remarkable results with a subgroup of patients with ALS.
As CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan tells us, it's only a small number, but the implications are significant.
Paula Trefiak was just 34 and newly diagnosed with ALS when she was enrolled in a clinical trial for a new drug, tofersen or Qalsody, in 2016.
I was on the lowest dose of 20 milligrams, so I still felt like I was deteriorating during that clinical trial.
But fortunately, she was early in her disease progression and was soon able to take a higher dose.
The drug is administered into the cerebrospinal fluid through a spinal tap, and the drug has shown to significantly reduce a toxic protein called SOD1, occurring in 2% of ALS patients.
Those 2% are a subgroup of the ALS patients who have a genetic cause for their illness. 90% of patients with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis are sporadic cases.
This drug has been in development for about 10 years, and Sunnybrook, along with other Canadian centres, have been part of an international collaboration to determine if gene therapy can work for patients with SOD1 ALS.
For SOD1 patients, the improvements can be astounding.
I wasn't getting the muscle cramping that I used to. And then I also felt stronger. Like I could go up on my toes and my heels weren't crashing down anymore. I had a lot of lip droop and I was slurring my speech quite a bit. That's gone.
And the implications for those carrying the gene but not yet showing symptoms is also huge. A study is currently underway to see if giving Qalsody might help.
That study is called ATLAS, and it's underway to prove if this gene therapy will prevent the ALS from ever even coming up in these patients.
Canadians who know they have the SOD1 mutation should go to their local ALS center to find out more about participating in the ATLAS study. Meanwhile, coverage for the drug is still being worked out.
Definitely fewer than 2 years is what we hope for, but we do know that there are therapies that have been approved by Health Canada that never were able to get through that pathway after 10 years. And that is definitely what we don't want to see for our community.
The number of patients is small, only a few dozen in Canada, but it is a costly medication given once a month. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
As health officials battle a measles outbreak in this province, Peel Public Health is investigating a case linked to international travel. Officials say members of the public may have been exposed on February 24th on Air Canada Flight 57 from Dubai to Toronto, and then at Pearson Terminal 1 from around 8:30 a.m. to noon. They also issued a warning about 2 locations in Mississauga on February 27th about health walk-in clinic and pharmacy and the emergency room at Trillium Health Partners Credit Valley Hospital. Health experts say measles is highly contagious and anyone potentially exposed should watch for symptoms. They also advise residents to get up to date on their vaccinations.
After the break, better service expected on the Better Way. Details on the TTC's Hillcrest construction project coming up.
It's just a modification short term because I didn't want to hurt the American. It would have hurt the American car companies.
Updating our top stories, U.S. President Donald Trump exempted more Canadian goods from tariffs, at least for now. Products will be spared from import taxes until April 2nd if they fall under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. Ottawa said it would hold off on some counter tariffs, while Premier Doug Ford said Ontario will stick with a planned surcharge on electricity exports.
I live in the neighborhood. It's very quiet here. Can't imagine what would have occurred.
Toronto police say a massive fire in Yorkville early yesterday morning is suspicious. The fire is believed to have started in a home under construction, and it quickly consumed several townhomes and multiple vehicles. Building permit records show multiple code violations at properties believed to be involved. The investigation is ongoing.
The people of Toronto deserve to have the services at the highest level.
And CUPE Local 79 members are holding information pickets this evening in their ongoing labor standoff with the city. The union represents 27,000 inside workers who could walk off the job as early as Monday. Wages have been a key sticking point. The city says its offer of 14.65% increase over 4 years is, quote, final.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar ended the day up slightly at 69.89. Western Canadian Select Oil is down $1.81, closing at $52.15 a barrel. And the TSX in Toronto closed down by almost 287 points to 24,584.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
The trade war with the United States could make it more difficult for the Americans to get inflation under control, in particular, the escalating price of eggs.
It has reached record highs south of the border. CTV's national correspondent Judy Trin reports on what impact that is having on everyday Americans.
Republicans and Democrats often meet at this iconic restaurant. Lately, customer traffic at Ted's Bulletin is slowing as the Trump administration hands out more pink slips. But what has the owner really scrambling is the skyrocketing cost of eggs.
Eggs going from roughly $1.50 to $2 a carton, going up to $6, even sometimes $7, has made a big impact on our business.
To control the outbreak of avian flu, which began in 2022, more than 166 million poultry have been culled in the United States. That has led to a massive shortage of egg-laying hens, turning this into a precious commodity.
It's so much more than it used to be. You used to think, just add an extra egg, and it's not that big of a deal. But it's on the top of our mind every day.
The restaurant chain goes through 4 million eggs a year. 70% of the restaurant's menu items are egg-based. For months, the owners tried to absorb the rising costs, but cracked 3 weeks ago.
We were trying not to pass it on to the guests, and hopefully it would pass. But once it reached a certain point, we were going to go in the red. We had to take a surcharge. So that's what we ended up doing.
To bring prices down, the U.S. is considering importing eggs.
How many of you ordered something with eggs today?
This is the Howard University basketball team.
Okay.
Among them is a shooting guard from Brampton, Ontario, who thinks importing from Canada won't go over well.
I don't know, since the tariffs, it's a rocky relationship right now. I know Canada wants to help, and Canada wants to, be allies and continue this partnership for as long as we can, but I know America's making that difficult.
The situation will get worse before it gets better. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that the price of eggs will go up by another 40% before the end of the year. Judy Trin, CTV News, Washington.
The TTC has kicked off another major construction project as it prepares to expand its streetcar fleet. The transit agency has operated its Hillcrest complex near Bathurst and Davenport for more than 100 years. It's used for streetcar and bus maintenance, as well as hosting the Transit Control Center. After all levels of government funded the purchase of 60 new streetcars, officials say 25 of them need a facility for maintenance and storage. So work's being done to make sure Hillcrest can accommodate them.
When this project is completed, Hillcrest will have additional capacity to store and maintain approximately 25 of the new streetcars. Increasing the number of streetcars on the road is key to providing a better transit experience for our customers. More vehicles means more capacity, means shorter wait times, and means more reliable service.
Officials say the upgrades will also mean more streetcars are stored close to the Bathurst and St. Clair lines, which they'll be serving.
In sports, the Toronto Scepters will be looking for a little payback tonight.
Feeds it in for Poulin, shoots and scores!
Toronto set to renew hostilities with the Montreal Victoire. The Scepters are coming off a 3-1 road loss to Montreal on February 25th. The defeat snapped a 6-game winning streak for Toronto. Puck drop is set for 7 o'clock at Coca-Cola Coliseum.
45 seconds to go in the power play. Matthews a shot, rebound, scores!
The Leafs were also looking to get back into the win column last night when they faced off against the Golden Knights. Vegas was up 5-0 in the second when Austin Matthews finally got Toronto on the board. Mitch Marner would add another one for the Leafs late in the third, but that would be as close as they would come. Toronto went on to lose 5-2 for its second straight loss. They play Saturday against Colorado. Just ahead, a 25-year-old rallying cry gets a sequel. The man behind a popular Canadian beer ad puts out a fresh rant ripe with Canadiana and a message for Trump.
Tonight, a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder added to the FBI's most wanted list.
Whiting traded snow for another kind of powder, giving up world-class athletic pursuits.
Where Ryan Whiting is believed to be hiding and the reward. Later on CTV National News.
With Canada facing down those U.S. tariffs, this is a time of great patriotic pride.
And that has prompted the star of a famous Canadian commercial to act.
We mistake our modesty for meekness, our kindness for consent, our nation for another star on their flag, and our love of a hot, cheesy poutine with their love of a hot, cheesy Putin.
That's one of the better lines. Jeff Douglas has returned as his Joe Canadian character. The original ad 25 years ago, you might remember, was for beer. This time, it is a direct response to Donald Trump's tariffs. The video, titled "We Are Canadian," has already received nearly 500,000 views on YouTube.
It brings back memories, doesn't it?
That was 25 years ago.
Long.
Goodness.
It was basically just yesterday. Yeah. The weather yesterday significantly different. We had all that rain. It was relatively mild. Today, it was cool out there. We had that northwesterly wind, light flurries, some freezing kind of going on the roads north of the city. But for now, we're getting a little bit of a break, and there's a reprieve on the way for almost everyone into the day tomorrow. Lake effect flurries have, for the most part, tapered off. Still the chance maybe overnight for a blast, and then a same early in the morning. But overall, we're pretty much done with it. -2 right now feels like -10, so that gusty wind still very much a factor. As you make your way out and we head into the day tomorrow, a whole lot more sunshine out there, and it will slowly start to warm up. As we head in towards our weekend, though, the sunshine is out, and it's going to be pretty nice.
Oh, it looks so beautiful. Okay, thank you, Jess. That's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great night.